Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today we're going to be looking at the Logitech G Pro gaming keyboard. So before we start, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe and ding the bell so you don't miss any future uploads. So the Logitech G Pro is a 10 keyless design that's aimed at esports and competitive gamers. Now, in order to not confuse you before we get started, this is the newer version with blue Kali switches over the older one that's using Logitech's own Roma G switches. Also, if you're not sure what switches you fancy, Logitech actually offers the G Pro X keyboard, which comes with a variety of user interchangeable switch types, so you can have a good play around to see which really works for you. And don't worry if you buy this version and want to change out the switches at a later point in time, they actually offer the switch pack separately so you can upgrade at a later date. So some key things to mention about the G Pro are the 12 programmable keys in form of the F keys, slightly different to other Logitech keyboards we've seen before that use dedicated macro keys, but being this is a TKL keyboard and designed to be small, you can see why it's been done this way instead. It's also got a 1 millisecond report rate, a 6-foot detachable braided cable, is compatible with Logitech's RGB system, which also offers quick on-the-fly adjustments on the actual keyboard itself, and of course the small form factor at only 14 by 6 inches. Now I'm including this part just because I always get asked. The keyboard I have inside is a UK layout, whereas on the actual picture it's a US layout keyboard. They print the most commonly used region on the actual front of the box rather than doing each individual region because it's just cheaper and easier to do. So that's why the keyboard inside is different to what's pictured on the box. So mine is a quick start guide and some warranty documents. Inside you just find a USB cable. As I said, it is nicely braided and you can't see the cable through it. It is a micro USB cable with a little bit of a different end to it, just where it's going to plug into the actual keyboard itself, but I don't see why you couldn't use a different cable if you wanted to. So let's get straight onto the keyboard. Lovely matte black texture as we've seen previously before. It can be perceptible to grease over time, but it is quite easy to clean, so pros and cons in that regard. If you've been around on the channel for a little while, or you've seen some of Logitech's other keyboards, it's a very similar design and layout. We do have media controls in the form of using a function and then the F keys along the top, and also the print screen, scroll lock and pause buttons. Being that this is made for competitive gaming and esports, you're not going to be using media keys quite as commonly as someone that's just using this for casual gaming. So obviously to keep down on the size of the keyboard, they've incorporated it into those keys instead. Also just up from there we've got a kill button for the Windows key. You can also default this to do also Alt and Control I believe in the software. So there's some options for what you actually want it to disengage when you press that. It does light up white when it's enabled as well, so in the dark you can tell when it's active. To the right of that you've got a switch for the lighting to turn it on and off. You can also press and hold to change through to some different presets. I will show you that later on in the video. On the left hand side we've got the G logo that's illuminated as we've seen for previous keyboards. A nice little touch and also something that can be changed in the software. So the micro USB port goes into the center on the back of the keyboard. As I did say, you could use a different one if you wanted to, or should you break this one by accident. As you can probably tell, there's no USB pass-through on there, so if you're looking for something that offers that as well, I'm afraid this isn't going to be the keyboard for you. But as I said, it is aimed more towards the competitive gamers and esports players, so probably something you're not going to be looking for anyway. On the bottom of the device we've got 5 rubber pads that will keep it nice and firmly on your desk without any slipping, and then the elevation adjustment for the keyboard comes in 2 stages. Personally for me, all the way up was my preference, but there is a halfway you can go should you want it a little bit lower, but it is nice to see those adjustments for those that want a little bit more flexibility. So onto the switches, and as I did say, this is using the blues over the Roma G switches they used to use previously. So personally for me, I haven't used blue switches for an extended period of time for probably about 5 years or so. To be perfectly honest with you, I've never really liked blues, but it was a little bit of adjustment period to get used to these again, and I did feel that they grew on me after a few weeks of using them. So these switches require 50 grams of actuation force, and they have a bump and an audible click at the top. So if you're using this somewhere where people are around, it's going to get very irritating for them. So definitely something you want to limit to use either in your bedroom or in your home, or obviously esports gaming where everyone's wearing headsets, so the sound doesn't matter anyway. For those that are wondering, here's a little example of them actually in action, and I'll also give you a typing test after that as well. So if you've not heard blue switches before, I'd expect you'll agree that they are very loud, so certainly very choice scenarios to use them in. But if you're someone that's using this for gaming and also maybe you do a lot of typing, then it would work really well as you can type really fast on them. So going across the lighting presets are on board with the keyboard. You can press and hold the options to turn the lighting on and off, and then you can go through the 1, 2, 7 keys to go through the different presets that they've already installed. The common ones on there are breathing effects. You've got rainbow waves, a color shift going through all the different 16.7 million colors available. But of course, if you want to go more in depth, you can go onto the software and program it. You can spend absolutely hours on it, so it's not something I'm going to really spend too much time on in this video, but I will try and find a link that I'll put in the description box below that will cover that in a bit more depth. And for anyone that's been with me for a long time, you may remember the G213 keyboard video. I actually saw some comments on that video that said that you can actually do this on the keyboard, so thank you to those guys that commented. Remembering those comments is what prompted me to remember to show it in this video. Okay, so giving you a quick walkthrough around the software. I'm doing this in real time, so apologies for any little errors that might come up. So Light Sync, we've got the presets all along the side here, all the ones that are available. You can just go in and then change the different colors that are on there. Audio Visualizer is pretty cool. You can do it so it obviously reacts to any audio that's playing on your system. You can be really advanced with it if you want to and do clipping and also boosts and all sorts of things like that. If you want to get really technical with it. As I did say, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I can add a link in the description for someone that's gone through this. So you can freestyle it. You can literally select some different zones to color. You could do obviously modifiers down here as well, F keys, all that kind of stuff. Add animations on there as well if you want to. As I did say, you can get very technical and just spend hours on this. The kind of thing I want to highlight here is the assignments for the macro keys. They're all listed along the top here. You can obviously go and click one and then either disable it or use the current. So for example, if you want to do editing and you know maybe do a lot of Photoshop, you can map these to something else, which is quite nice. As you can see, I've put that F5 key onto copy, but you could just go to F6 and then click where you want that and it will just add it on there. So it's really simple. You can just disable that there as well. And then the G5, you can take that off as well. Going further down, there's also presets for Windows. Of course, you can just go in and just change any one you want here. You can go to search for commands. You can literally do a macro on every key if you want to. Obviously, if you're doing competitive games, macros aren't actually allowed. So there's a bit of a limiting factor on what you could really do with this, because you may go to do esports and then you can't actually use these now. But for the majority of people that will be using this in their bedroom or just their gaming setup, you do have lots of options here. You also got actions here for some programs, so you can have Discord stuff, OBS things as well for microphone mutes and changing scenes and stuff like that. So lots of customizable options there. So macro, we'll call this test, and then you can just set different things. So repeat while we're holding it down and press start. And then say record keystrokes, press the number of buttons, press stop recording, and we can save that. Then when that's done, we could literally go F7, test. Now that's applied to G7. So really quite simple to do. Personally for me, as I did say, I'm used to some of the Logitech keyboards that have the macros down the side, which would be my preference. But for those that are happy to go and overwrite the F keys at the top, you can have an absolute field day with this and spend, again, hours on it. So you can do other things as well. We've got mice controls there as well, media controls. So should you want to map the media controls so you have to just press them once without having to use a function key, that's something you can do. So if you want to call it Mac style, so you just literally press it without having to use an additional key, that's also something you can do. I do like the ability to do it without having to hold down an additional key. So like, for example, if I get a call, just bang the mute button or pause, nice and simple, and you don't have to be reaching for function keys. So you can literally just go in and click additional keys that won't be active when that's pressed. So this is obviously going to be down to personal preference on what games you're playing. Some people use control instead of shift for crouching and things like that. So obviously it's going to vary from person to person if you actually want to use that or not. If you want to get it absolutely perfect, you're going to have to spend some time here, but there's so much you can do. And in contrast with other keyboards that I've looked at, this opens up a world of possibilities. So I've given you a look around the keyboard itself. Now let's give you my conclusion and some overall thoughts. So first of all, I want to touch on the switches, and the blues are very subjective. My most commonly used ones are browns, which obviously give the same kind of feel with a nice bump at the top, but then actually no audible click, which for those that are more sensitive to sound and that like being quiet when they play games, certainly definitely the choice over the blues. If you're not a fan of the bump, then the reds are the way to go. Switches have always been subjective and they always will be. If you're not sure about it, I'd suggest going out to your local store and trying them out in person. Get a real feel for which ones you fancy. And as a last resort, I did mention they did an X version, which includes lots of different types anyway. Then you can spend time over a few days or even weeks to really nail down what ones you want in there. As usual, Logitech's lighting is always on point. I think this keyboard is slightly brighter than the previous ones I've looked at. That could just be down to a generation change in LED technology, but I certainly feel it has more pop than other keyboards that I've looked at from Logitech. Having a little bit of macro dabble and in-game performance I found to just be really great. As I did say, going to the blues was a little bit of a change, but one that I didn't find to be overly difficult. Any kind of game that I played was very enjoyable and I didn't find any issues with latency. The keys were very sharp and precise and I didn't find that I did any grammatical errors when typing either. Now Kali switches do have a little bit of a rap sometimes for not being as great quality as Cherry switches, but for me I haven't seemed to find any issues in the space of time that I've been testing it for, so I can't really comment on that regard. It has taken me a little bit of time to adjust to the size of this keyboard, generally because I use the full size ones, but overall this is a really well performing, sturdy and precise keyboard. It's got everything you need for casual gaming, competitive gaming, without any unnecessary gimmicks. Lots of software customization as well. You can literally do that to your heart's content, and it will fit into a casual or an esports gaming situation. So thank you for watching this video, guys. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you do have any more questions, please leave them in the comments box below and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. I will put the link for this down in the description box below if you want to get one for yourself. If you enjoyed this video and you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and ding the bell so you don't miss an upload. Big thank you to Logitech for sending this out for me to review. I will see you all in the next one.